Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Rob, who have we got on the phone?
We have got the president of the Geelong Cricket Association, Mr. Rob Vines. G'day, old fellow.
Oh, thanks very much, Rob. How are you?
and that's a big call coming from Rob.
Well, I couldn't quite go with young fellow. You had to be one or the other, and so.
All right, fair enough. I'll be the old part. That's all right.
I'm sure this job is making you old, as if it wasn't hard enough last year, and more pressure and changes to circumstances. Along comes COVID. The football competition pinches a month of your season, and so much going on. Are we going to be ready for October the 31st? And more importantly, what's it going to look like?
Well, I'm very confident we'll be ready. It's certainly going to look different. It'll be the game that we all know, but we'll be, from a GCA perspective, playing it, a bit differently this year. Predominantly, a one-day format for this season. The possibility of some two-day cricket after Christmas, but that remains to be seen. But certainly, all of these, different new and different COVID protocols that have to be implemented. And I'm confident because, the preparation by our clubs has been terrific. We've been very well guided by government and by Cricket Victoria, and, the GCA board's been well prepared. Clubs have responded in a fantastic way, got their COVID plans in place, the COVID safe plans, and we've hopefully given them enough time to trial some things, embed some things that they need to embed to make sure that, not only round one but the whole season, occurs in a very, very safe way. Cricket's important, but safety's the number one priority this year, and so we're as prepared as I think we could be. There've been a few little, issues around the edges and around the periphery that we've been managing, and inevitably new things are popping up that we've never thought of before or had to think of before. But the communication channels are very good, and I think all things considered, we're in as good a place as we could be, to be honest, Rob.
So, Rob, it's Neil here. A question that I haven't got my head around yet, and all cricket associations seem to be doing it. Why is playing one-day cricket preferable to playing two-day cricket when it comes to COVID?
Well, it really comes down to providing more flexibility. It really, one-day cricket just gives you more options if the what-if happens.
Yep.
The worst-case scenario is if a game is interrupted by a COVID event, and if a game, if it was a two-day game, there's just going to be a lot more disruption.
Okay, yep, that makes sense.
To the season and to the competition. So one-day cricket, I think it took a bit of thinking through, but I think if you look across all of the associations across Victoria, and certainly what the peak bodies have been telling us, that one-day cricket's the preferred mode simply because it provides more flexibility to be able to cope with a COVID event. Obviously we don't want that. Nobody wants that. But if it happens, it just gives us more flexibility in the way that we can manage the competition.
Rob, it would have been a difficult thing to put together, because you want to provide leadership that suits the region and suits the clubs, but I imagine you are somewhat controlled by government and therefore Cricket Victoria protocols. That all comes into the wash. How restricted were you in... there's that old common sense factor when you're dealing with bureaucracy. You look at something and say, well, hang on, we can still manage that like this, but you're somewhat hamstrung by a higher authority?
Well, to some extent, but I think if you respect and appreciate the logic of that higher authority, it certainly helps. And look, we can all debate and speculate endlessly about whether the government approach has been the right approach or not. But you've got to respect that they're making the call on what they think is best for the community from the community health perspective. And if you settle your mind to that objective, then how you manage a cricket competition in that context sort of tends to look after itself after that. Now there's been a lot of uncertainty about when the season could commence. There's been a lot of uncertainty around the conditions under which the game would be played, and a lot of that's been evolving. It's been quite fluid. But I think if if you sort of take a mindset that no one deliberately invented this virus. This virus has happened, and it's a virus that's really been in control, not even government. Then you kind of develop a mindset where you say, well, yes, certainty would be, maximum certainty would be a wonderful thing, but it's just simply not on offer. So you need to manage with that kind of mindset, and the board has been really good in the way it's thought through the challenges, and the clubs have been likewise. The leadership from the clubs has been exemplary. I've held 2 or 3 forums now with club presidents, open forums, just open discussion forums where, the conversation's been really positive. It's been about can do, and working together to try and get the season up and going.
When I was playing cricket, Rob, I played it at a level that if someone turned up wearing a white shirt and a tie and a black pair of trousers, we knew that the umpire had got lost. We never had an umpire turn up to the standard I played. How do you police some of the requirements, like, no one licking the ball and all this sort of stuff? How does that stuff get policed when you've got a lack of umpires?
Well, I think of it like I think of any law that we have in the community. The primary enforcers are ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes, we have enforcement people, and in the case of society, they're called the police. But at the end of the day, laws really work when people self-regulate in a sensible way and are prepared to be compliant. So, that's the first, for me, that's the first step in compliance is that, the community's willingness to be compliant. And I think, from that point on, enforcement, clearly is the responsibility of certain bodies. Now, the GCA has made it clear that, we don't see ourselves as enforcers. We see ourselves more as communicators and educators of the expectations and the requirements. But the enforcers at the end of the day are the government and the agencies of government that are there to enforce. The umpires, will have a role to play to ensure that, the rules of the game are enforced, and the COVID requirements that have been added to that, we'd expect the umpires to be on the front foot with reminding players of the expectations. But it really comes down to making sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of what's expected, and we expect, players, administrators, spectators, anyone involved in the game this year to carry the responsibility themselves of self-enforcement, which I think is critically how the whole thing is going to work in the community.
Rob, numbers are always, well, not all at all clubs, but a lot of clubs' numbers are quite tight to fill teams required, and I sense that this year, with an important part of what I reckon country cricket is the aftermatch, and the aftermatch clearly isn't going to happen. So I would suggest numbers might be limited. There might be people who think, well, if that's not part of the game, it's probably I might as well go and have a game of golf. And also the fear, perhaps, that someone doesn't want to put themselves into the environment, put themselves further at risk. I imagine you'd be flexibility as far as forfeits and things if this is stretched through clubs.
Well, that's right. Look, no one really knows for sure. Well, everything you've just said, Rob, is possible, but no one really knows for sure how it will play out. I'm expecting to see a fair bit of inventiveness from clubs about trying to maintain the social cohesion of their clubs in ways that are COVID safe. So, if the weather's kind, I'm hoping that we see a little bit more outdoor kind of, outdoor things happening, in a compliant way. Everyone's going to make their individual choices, aren't they, I suppose, about the level of participation in the competition this year, whether you're a player, an umpire, an administrator, spectator, whatever. Everyone's going to make their personal choices, and they should be respected and entitled to do that. But I think clubs will be, quite inventive and flexible, and look to try and maintain some level of social cohesion. But it certainly won't be normal, what we regard as normal. But if you take a glass half full kind of view of this, we're all learning things that might become part of, our normal cricket lives when this COVID experience is over. We may learn some things during this period that we go, okay, well, that's actually not a bad thing to be doing normally. There's benefit in that. So, I think there's inevitably going to be some positives come out of all of this.
As long as we can keep playing cricket, that will definitely be a positive. And then the interaction with junior cricket, and again, so many junior players play morning and afternoon. I suppose there's protocols around that as well, so that can be continued on safely?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, all of these protocols apply down through junior cricket into the women's competition as well. The protocols are across the board, and there's been inevitably some evolution and shift in some of these protocols as the seasons got closer to starting. But they're reasonably settled now, and I think everyone in clubland has or should have a very clear understanding of what's expected. It's certainly going to put more pressure and expectation on clubs than they've ever experienced. But I'm confident the clubs are up to the challenge, and the feedback I'm getting is that clubs are well prepared. But the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and hopefully the first couple of rounds of the season go relatively smoothly. Gives everyone a good degree of confidence that this can work, and we'll just continue on from there. Sustaining the effort will be really important. I'm sure everyone will get themselves up for the first couple of rounds, but we've got to sustain the effort through the season. So, that will be important to monitor as well.
And I assume someone from Cricket Australia has been in touch with the Bureau of Meteorology to let them know that the 2 wet weekends have to be moved to the end of October and early November.
As you know, we can't control the virus, but we perfectly control the weather. So yeah, absolutely. Well, what are we supposed to be having, a La Nina event?
Something like that.
Yes, it is.
In Australia, so.
Because I noted with amusement that on Saturday the 3rd of October it rained, and I thought someone hasn't told the Weather Bureau that the cricket season's not starting yet.
Well, it would have been interesting whether we would have played today. I mean, we had a lot of rain here last night at my place, so I'm assuming the grounds would be pretty wet this morning.
And then you can't go in the rooms and play cards now when it's raining.
We would have had covered grounds, covered wickets, of course, overnight. So, given that the day has dawned reasonably clear, you would have hoped we would have got some cricket away today. But, these are all the variables. Just think of COVID as just another variable in the mix, Rob.
Hey, we've overshot the runway, but quickly, one last question. We would hope that the clubs would be quite understanding of, people like to say, well, these are the rules for the season, but it's pretty obvious that you might be restricted to have a set of rules for the season, and things may change from week to week, month to month. So I presume the clubs would be open to rolling change?
Well, we hope so, and when we're not entirely sure what that looks like ourselves. Obviously we've got a set of protocols that we think will apply for the season, but of course we're in this context of a government roadmap of gradual easing. So how that actually reflects in the cricket protocols just remains to be seen. Do we see a little bit of easing in the cricket protocols or the COVID protocols for cricket as the season unfolds? Possibly. There hasn't been a lot of talk about that I've heard. But when you think about it logically, that might be possible. But look, I think it's like everything this season. You've just got to remain open-minded about things that could unfold. And a week is a long time. In this environment, a lot can happen in that time, and even a couple of days is a long time in this sort of managing this COVID.
Yeah, well,
So.
Best of wishes to all of you, your committee, who will be working very hard to make sure the game continues as best it can. But we know that it's going to be difficult, it's going to be unusual, and there's going to be a lot of stress on administrators in particular, because I sense there's probably be a fair bit of new paperwork that needs to be filled in, which is never enjoyable at the best of times.
I think, as I said before, Rob, I think it's all of those things, but I think too, on the positive side, there's going to be a lot of new things to look at and to experience. and we're going to, monitor that experience and say, well, what of that, could become part and parcel of our normal seasons going forward. And I think we're going to gauge that. All of us are going to gauge that, not only at board level but at club level, and we'll have conversations about what we think are some of the benefits that we've experienced out of all of this that might be worth continuing with.
Excellent. Good on you, mate. All the very best. We appreciate your time, and we will no doubt talk to you regularly throughout the season, as we normally do.
Yeah, happy to, Rob. Anytime, you know that.
Good on you, Rob. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, man. Bye.